Salutations everybody, and thank you for watching episode I think 64 of DiabeticRadio.com. Today is an important subject. I've been meaning to talk about this for quite some time, and it is the subject of weight and diabetes. And there are a lot of people out there who never been overweight before, and they have a lot of theories of how easy it is to lose weight, and theories about diabetes, and who've never been diabetic. And this video really is to try to explain just how difficult it is to lose weight. It doesn't mean that it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not just as easy as just eating, fruits and vegetables. When you look at the caloric recommendations by the FDA as to how much you should eat to lose weight, consider the fact that these recommendations are for people who, assuming you have no, genetic disorders, you have no, genetic conditions, and you are completely healthy. You just purely gain weight through improper, eating habits. Okay. Now I want you to look at this chart that I'm putting up now. Now I know that the fat and the carbs and stuff, it's horrendous, but I only chose this particular one just for the calories. Okay. Remember also that calories are a derivative of the fats, proteins, and carbs and all of that, okay? That's very important. Now, let's look at a 1,200 calorie diet, which is pretty low for a lot of people, right? So 420 calories, you divide 1,200, 1,300 calories, you get about 450 calories per meal. In this particular case of this Subway sandwich, just 420 calories. So now, if we just, exclude the fat and the proteins, forget about those numbers, okay? Look on the right-hand side, and let's talk about where it says how to burn off the 420 calories, okay? Now, most good websites that talk about losing weight also usually gives you information about what kind of exercise and how long it would take to burn off those calories. Okay, so first thing we got is walking, which is 117 minutes, right? Then we have jogging, 48 minutes. We got swimming, 35 minutes, and we have cycling, which is 64 minutes. Now, just like when you look at portions in a can, the nutrition information, or take soda, for instance, you get a bottle of soda. Most people don't realize, or they forget, they'll look at a soda and it'll say 150 calories. But most people don't realize or forget that 150 calories is actually 150 calories times 2, or 2.5, sometimes even 3. So you actually taking in that one bottle, because most people would drink a whole bottle of, let's say, what is it, a 16 ounce, 12 ounce. So in reality, that 150 calorie drink is actually 450 calories. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's apply this to the figures of how to burn off these calories. Okay, remember that a healthy diet consists of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So assuming that we're going to stay within a 1200, 300 caloric range, that means every other meal is going to be anywhere from 400 to 450 calories per meal. So sticking with this particular chart that I have here, the walking, which is said to be 117 minutes, we have to times that by 3, okay, because you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So the walking turns out to be 351 minutes in all, which is a little more than 5 hours. The jogging is calculated to be 144 minutes, which is a little over 2 hours. The swimming, 105, which is almost an hour and a half, which, by the way, most people don't have access to swimming. And the last is the cycling, which adds up to 192, which is a little over 3 hours. Okay, what does that say to me? To me, that's a lot of exercising. And in this day and age, we just don't have that kind of time to exercise that much like that. You know, and the other thing is, this is saying a powerful message. Because I know a lot of people don't think this, you know, but, you know, people who've never been fat wouldn't look at from this angle anyway, you know. And that is, first of all, 1200, 1300 calorie diet is a diet for people who is said to be for people who really want to lose weight fast, fairly quickly. Okay. However, if you look at these stats will have you barely maintaining your weight, even at 1200 calories. So what does that mean? That means you can barely keep up, because if you can't walk 5 hours in a day, which most people can't, right? So what does that mean? That means that you would barely be able to keep up with the exercise requirements in order to burn off those calories. And that 1200 to 1300, those are pretty low calories. You can't lower your calories further than that. At least that's my opinion. You should not lower your calories any lower than that, because you now run the risk of undernourishing yourself. If you are really morbidly obese, really overweight, you should always make sure that you are under a guidance of a licensed nutritionist. I wouldn't even speak to a doctor about it. No offense. You know, I think that something like this is better handled by a nutritionist. Just an opinion, you know. So, okay, so having said that, okay, keep in mind that as you exercise, you know, you're doing all whatever physical activity, your body has mechanisms inside it that lets you know when it needs more energy. Okay? And as you exercise, what do you think is going to happen? I'll give you a minute to think about it. Right after you exercise, what happens to your body? You get hungry. As you exercise, and particularly a hard workout, you tend to get a little bit more ravished. You know, I don't think that's the word I'm looking for. You get hungry because your body is looking for more nutrients. You know what I'm saying? So now you're trying to use all these different crazy things to try to prevent yourself from getting hungry, when it's your body's natural mechanisms that is telling you, hey, we need more energy in this body in order for us to take care of things that we need to do. Okay? So what did this tell you? That it's more than just food, it's more than just fruits and vegetables. You know, a good portion of this is genetics. Let me give you another clue, something else to think about. I'm sure we all know that person, usually a guy, who is skinny as a rail, who wants to gain weight to build muscle. And he does all kinds of things. He drinks tons of protein. That doesn't work. He starts eating all kinds of junk food. That may not work. He starts drinking beer. Maybe he starts getting gaining a little weight in size. But you know what? The minute that person stops eating that junk food, he starts going from big to small again. Why? Because genetically, that's how he's made up to be. In order for him to keep up that muscle mass, he will always have to eat all kinds of junk food. Well, don't you think that is true for many people who are overweight? There's some of us, when we lose weight, we gain it back. Because we are genetically, we just have messed up genetics. Now, at the same time, I'm also not saying that we should never exercise because you're going to be fat anyway, or you should never do these things because you always have diabetes anyway. It's still controlling your blood sugars, controlling your carb intake has always been the best way to control your blood sugars, to control your diabetes. It's so rude. I hate it when people they come around and they look at what you're eating. Well, that has too much, carbs, right? You have too much this, right? Blah, 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 blah. But in truth, in order to get to intake a healthy amount of calories, it's usually going to be the fat, the proteins, and the carbs. There's always going to be one more than the other. That's just, that's why it's important to have balance. I refuse to live my life never to eat something again because someone has an opinion of what I shouldn't eat. It is so much more complicated. So much more complicated. You know, I'm reading this book. I'm hoping to finish this by the end of this week. It's called Why We Get Fat. And the author is the only author, I forgot his name. When I finish with the video, I'll put up the name so that you guys can research it. He's one of the very few people that brought up good points that I already knew just from being diabetic for a long time and being overweight all my life. And that is, the media will try to make you think that it's an American thing. Oh, America gets fat, and oh, we got to do this, and oh, we got to do that. Trust me when I tell you it's a marketing tool, because somebody has something to sell, either a exercise equipment or some food product that claims to get rid of disease. Okay, there are countries out here, third world countries or whatever, who's never seen a can of Pepsi in their life, who never saw a bottle of Coke in their life, and yet they are overweight. And it's funny when you look at certain parts of Africa, for example, so many of the women, so many people that are overweight tend to be the women, and the book makes a comment, the author in the book makes a comment on how, a lot of these women who are overweight have trouble getting aid or food assistance, because the mentality is, oh, if the woman is overweight, then she must be eating all her kids' food, and that's why the kids are starving. When the truth of the matter is, it very much has to do with genetics, And like I've said before, diabetes has been around for, it's been discovered a little bit more than 1,500 years ago. It's not a new thing. Now, since it's been discovered 1,500 years ago, okay, you can gather that it's been around a lot longer than that. I think that it's safe to assume, without being at the risk of sounding arrogant, I think you really can safe to assume that diabetes has been around before Christ. It's illogical to not think so. And then you have the people that say, oh, well, we need to go, we need to do the paleo diet. Now that's really big. We have all these fads all over the place, but the paleo diet is what's in now. Now, I ain't going to tell you no lie. The paleo diet does seem to be a good thing. I'm kind of doing the paleo diet, but not really. I'm eating a little bit more proteins and some more vegetables, and I like it because, you're able to control the carbs a lot more, opposed to having a meat dish that contains a mixture of protein and a lot of carbs. I can have my little turkey, which turkey is very good, by the way, because it has the least amount of carbs and the least amount of fat. That's why I love turkey so much. A lot of people say that they don't like turkey because they say it's dry, but it depends who makes it. Not all turkey is dry. So, I have my little turkey, I have my vegetables, and if I, want a little carbs, I can take a couple of potatoes and still be within and still not take more carbs than I want to. It's a really good way to control your sugar intake. I really like it a lot. But I'm not really paleo per se, like I said. Because paleo, when you look at the paleo, whatever, how you pronounce it, it's restrictive in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that you can't eat, And my argument is, they say go back to the caveman days where they're just eating meat, but at the same time, in the caveman days, the oldest lived is like 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? So, that's, I'm not sure if that's totally correct either. We're living longer now than we ever did before. And you say, oh, well, be healthy, take vitamins and all this and that. Well, we don't need a lot of vitamins. Back in the days, in the caveman days, we wasn't taking 5,000 units of vitamin C either. But you put the word healthy around it, all of a sudden, it's acceptable. I'm gonna end the podcast with just saying this. Ultimately, it boils down to loving yourself. Even if you never ever lose a pound, it still doesn't change the fact that we still have to try to make attempts to eat healthier, even though that there is a large genetic factor involved in whether we stay thin, gain weight, or stay overweight. Eating fruits and vegetables is the way that we get the nutrients we need so that our bodies take care of itself. And you people who are not overweight or have diabetes, you cannot look at someone's weight and make a blatant judgment as to whether that person is taking care of themselves or not, because there could be a lot of things going on with that person that could give reasons as to why that person is overweight. It's not because they're downing candy always. And another important factor is that just because someone loses weight or have diabetic symptoms and easily loses weight and kept it off, doesn't necessarily mean that they may have had diabetes in the first place, which is one of the big problems I have with the A1C test, which is a whole nother video. Okay. And don't get me wrong, I don't want a whole bunch of people sending me emails saying, what are you talking about? The A1C does not tell you whether you have diabetes or not. Okay. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. You're going to hear it the first time on Diabetic Radio on this video. The A1C doesn't tell you whether you're diabetic or not. A doctor can make an assumption that you probably are based on those numbers. But all the A1C does is check your blood sugars in a 3-month period. That's all it does. And based on what your A1C percentage are, those blood sugar readings could mean anything. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're diabetic. It could be because you're taking a medication. It could mean because you're taking steroids. It could mean because if you're a woman, it could mean, it's because you're going through hormone therapy. You're taking estrogen. It could mean you're going through menopause. It could be because you're one of those women that have bad menstrual cycles. It could be anything. Anything. It could be stress. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're diabetic. Now that I've discovered that type 2 is a form of autoimmune as well, the vast majority of people who are type 2, they would never get to have that test because a lot of doctors don't know about it. They still just test you based on your A1Cs, and even with those A1Cs, they automatically assume that you're type 2, based on your ethnicity, based on your age, based on all these other things, based on assumptions and not by fact. You are where you are, not based on how you look. You are what you are based on what's happening with your body. Despite belief, there are overweight people who have LADA. There are skinny people who have type 2. Type 2 isn't exclusive to fat people. Okay? And I know I keep saying that this is the last thing, but this is the last thing before I go. And that is, you gotta try to understand people who like to give off their opinions and run their mouth about diabetes and they're not diabetic. Okay? Because the vast majority, let's say type 2 people, and people who have LADA as well, because people who have LADA also have some form of insulin resistance. Okay? I'll try to make this as simple as possible. Okay? When you have the insulin resistance, insulin resistance means that your cells does not respond to the insulin. So what is the insulin going to do? The insulin at some point is going to store a good portion of that glucose as fat for later use, because it's going to pretty much think that the body doesn't need the glucose, so we're going to save it. And the kidneys is going to try to do its best to flush out as much as it can. Okay? So, thus, we gain weight. The other part of it is because some of us who are insulin resistant, and because the cells doesn't recognize the insulin, because for whatever reason it thinks that the insulin isn't there, or for whatever reason, the body's going to look for other sources of energy. So it's going to start breaking down the muscles, which causes ketoacidosis. So now you're losing muscle mass and you're losing weight. And this is why many of us who are diabetic have this gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. Trust me when I tell you, there's no such thing as pre-diabetes. I don't give a shit when anybody tells you. Diabetes is genetic. It is a metabolic disease. Either you have it or you don't. And it's, for some of us, it may not present itself until later. Maybe you are lucky enough that the diabetes doesn't show up at all because, of part of your genetic makeup and staying healthy or whatever. Each and every single individual is different. Okay, so please don't pass judgment on people. Okay, we need your support because diabetes is 24 hours a day disease. We don't have a day off. So we need your positivity, not your nagging, not your comments. not your judgments. We just need your love and support. If we ask you, that's another thing. Give your opinion. But until then, who asked you? Thanks for watching. Bye.